And so would you give a hand of welcome to Dr. Kelly Coles?
Hot building, second floor, dripping sweat, but you know what? Beth invited me here today because evidently she thought it was important that you all understand what's going on in education. I think it's really, really important that everybody understand what's happening in education, what has happened, what's not happened, but so much so that I say I'll go wherever 3 people gather, because you need to know what we need to work on. And you probably know quite a bit, but let me fill in a little bit more, and then you'll know what to talk about, what to say. You'll know what to ask your school boards. You know, Springboro is a public school system, like Logan Hocking. You have almost 4,000 students. We have 5,500 students. Our demographics are different, so I won't compare Springboro to Logan Hocking. I just want to fill you in on where we are globally, where we are as a state nationally, and where Logan Hocking is academically and fiscally. And that way you'll kind of know where we are and where we need to go. Okay? So let me see if I can work this. I've never had a clicker before. I'm going to cherish this. This is such a beautiful place. Oh my gosh. I drove up here and thought, this is just so pristine. I've just never seen such a beautiful setting and a beautiful church. Thank you for the invite, guys. But anyway, education, it's all about being informed. I might not be doing something wrong. So I want you guys to get involved. Not just me, but the children deserve your involvement. I feel bad as a parent that I have these 5 kids, these precious, precious children, and I had no idea that because I wasn't paying attention, things were happening in education that I didn't know about. And I'll describe it probably more through here, but I should have been involved, and I feel kind of derelict as a parent that I really wasn't paying attention. So I want more people to start paying attention, to get involved. You know, I'm one of those parents that's kind of an in-your-face parent. I tell you a lot of personal stuff because it is personal. In my opinion, education should be personal for every single one of us. And our children deserve your involvement and for you to make it personal. Okay, so I give you some personal experience. But what I think all of you ought to start asking, for example, I can look either way. Or I can look up there. I forgot about that. What you should know, what you should be asking is, how do we know in education we're doing what we should be doing? So as a community member, as a parent, I just kept putting no signs at the end of my driveway for levies. I knew that I couldn't afford any more, that I was done paying, I couldn't do any more, so please vote no, people. That's what I knew. I didn't know a lot of the inside to the district, what was going on. I just knew that my pockets were empty. And they kept asking for more money. But what I also noticed was when they would ask for more money, if it didn't pass, they started removing goods and services for the children. And I thought, surely there's something else you can do. Surely you can tighten the belt like we've had to do at our home. You know, surely. So my neighbors called me and said, Kelly, why don't you run for school board? Kind of like, you know, Kelly, you're the no voter. Get in there and see if you can do a better job. And I thought, well, no, I don't want to do that, but okay, I will. So I ran for school board, and you know, inside the district, they didn't care for the Coles message because the Coles message was, I'm paying enough, and I'm done paying. And they didn't like that. So they worked against me in many, many, many ways. They worked against me. The newspaper was totally against me. The teachers union told everybody to vote for the other 3 candidates, essentially telling them who not to vote for. The paper did the same thing, but I got more votes than anybody. And I think the reason was the community is ready for someone to go in there with a more critical eye. Not just an eye that says, you're all great, we're doing a wonderful job, but somebody who would really look into the numbers, and somebody who would maybe really look into the academics and say, what are we doing? Are we doing the right thing? How do we know we're doing the right thing? Show me. I'm a scientist, but not that you need to be one. You need to just say, show me the proof. How do we know we're doing the right thing? Second is, we were always told during these levies that we had to continue to pay and benefit the way we were to keep the best of the best. And my question was simply, how do we know we have the best of the best? We've never measured it. We've never measured teaching effectiveness. So we could very well have the best of the best in Springboro. I'm pretty sure that all school districts say that they have the best of the best, because I've never heard anybody say they have the worst of the worst. So I'm pretty sure we all have, it's kind of like everybody being above average. We all have the best of the best, but and maybe so. I just want to measure that. Let's measure teaching effectiveness, and then we will know the answer to that. So the state has helped us out on that one, and I'll talk about that more. We also were always told it's for the kids. But I would say, how is tenure good for the kids? How does tenure help education? So there are many things that the district was participating in that really didn't make sense. How is that good for kids' education? So, and there was no good answer, still isn't. Why are we spending, or are we spending what we should, and what are we missing? Start with how we're doing globally. So this is some really good information. Okay, so there's a PISA test. It's the Program for International Student Assessment. It's done every 3 years, and it's a global standardized test. And lots of students, I've got a number coming up here, but lots of students take this test. The PISA organization mandates what students are chosen for that test, but they're 15-year-olds. 15-year-olds in school across all these countries. This shows that overall the United States is, I think it is 7th. But even so, for the United States, unlike other countries, they removed everybody that wasn't a natural American. They removed all of the immigrants, just to make our numbers a little better. So I'm not sure we didn't fluff those numbers a little bit if we really included the immigrants. Okay. Next, Program for International Student Assessment, the PISA, which was done in 2009. In 2012, they just completed another PISA test. We will get the results in December of 2013, which is this year. But because we only have 2009, it may look a little old, but that's the latest data we have. And we have not instituted anything, either nationally or statewide or in the local districts, to change our academic outcome. I assume then that the 13 results will be just like the 9 results, because we haven't done anything. But in this study, it was done with 60 other countries, and only 33 of those other countries were industrialized. 22 other countries did better than the U.S. in science, 31 did better than the U.S. in math, and 14 did better than the U.S. in reading. Okay, Dr. Forgione, I think that's kind of hard to read, isn't it? Dr. Forgione is the Commissioner of Educational Statistics. These are his quotes. He said that the results of the TIMSS test, this is another international standardized test, the results of the TIMSS test involving 500,000 students in 41 countries were authoritative. He said that by the time our students are ready to leave high school, ready to enter higher education in the labor force, they're doing so badly with science that they are significantly weaker than their peers in other countries. He said that our idea of advanced is clearly below international standards. He said that there appears to be a consistent weakness in our teaching performance in the physical sciences that becomes magnified over the years. And here's where I stop and say, guys, I was a professor for 10 years. I'm a teacher. I'm likely to be somewhat defensive of teachers because I know they work hard in the classroom. I am not anti-teacher. I don't want that to be the story that anybody leaves here with today. I'm actually very supportive. But we have to change what we're doing. The global results are one indicator. Let me get to some other ones. We're not doing things right, and it is not the teacher in the classroom. It's a system failure. So let me help you with how our system is failing our kids. But this is his narrative again. He says that, in short, the TIMSS test showed the U.S. fourth graders performing poorly, middle school students worse, high school students are unable to compete. By the same criteria used to say that we're average in elementary school, we appear to be near the bottom at the high school level. People have a tendency to think that's those other school districts, ours is good. But chances are that even if your school district scores well on the SATs, they're still an international lightweight. Other countries do better in math. For years, the U.S. lagged behind countries in math and science. 2009 studies showed that American students ranked 25th of 34 countries, behind nations like China, Singapore, South Korea, Hong Kong, and Finland. Why? Well, you have to wonder, okay, why are we doing so poorly? Are we just not putting enough money in the system? Is that it? Okay, this shows that in all these countries, you'll see the U.S., United States is the red bar. We're second only to Switzerland, and that's in 2009. Today, we lead the globe in how much we spend per student in education. So it's not the money. We're doing that. This shows from 1970, here's where I use my little red, from 1970 to 2012, this says 10, but it's dotted up there showing you it goes all the way to 12. Here's what we've been spending in education, okay? Per pupil, I think that is, yeah. Here's our results in math, reading, and science. Here's again what we're spending over time since 1972 all the way up to 2012 spending. And here is our SAT math and reading scores. We've been giving it that resource, haven't we? We've been giving it money. I don't think we've been stingy. Class size, maybe it's class size. But here's what's been happening to class size over time. Okay, since 1990 to 2007, class size has been going down. Average class size. Here is global class sizes. Many Asian countries score higher than the U.S. on this PISA and TIMSS, but have class sizes higher than the U.S. For example, Hong Kong, Singapore, Japan have class sizes that are from 30 to 38, whereas in the U.S. we have 23 to 28. It's not class size. It's not money. Okay, we go down to Ohio here. Sorry, my transitions are terrible. I did not get a degree in IT, that's for sure, or presenting. I do this because I'm asked, not because I'm good at it. But this is the state of Ohio, okay? And here is the per pupil spending over time again, 1999 all the way up to 2009. But here again is our 8th grade math and reading scores. This is the state of Ohio. I take my slides from other people. I steal them from other people that have done this stuff. So it's not stuff that I've put together. This came from Ohio Department of Ed. So you can go to the Ohio Department of Education and you can find a whole lot of information. So this was a presentation done back in 2009. It was a slide presentation called When Students Matter Most. And I'm going to tell you that I'm grateful for our state for doing some things. And some of those things are they're being honest now. For many years, they've not told anybody how poorly we were doing. They've kept it very quiet. Now, we have legislators, we have an Ohio school board that go out and give these presentations. I'm taking these slides from them. And I'm touching you just like they will do if you invite them. They're trying to tell everybody we're failing. So it's not just me. It's not Kelly Cole's interpretation. Our legislators are saying the same thing. I'm just helping them spread the message, which people in my district are not happy with me for this, but I feel the need to do this. This is, again, spending. This is from a presentation written by, a document written by Colleen Grady. Colleen Grady is an education expert, and she is Speaker Batchelder, Speaker of the House at the Ohio, in Columbus, the Ohio State. And he is the Speaker of the House. She is his right-hand gal, education expert. She and this woman named Ann Sheldon wrote this pamphlet, and I've got a reprint out there. It's called Grading on a Curve. I took pieces of it and I put it together in Grading on the Curve. The larger report is much larger than I can afford to reprint for you, so I've got pieces of it out there for you. So grab one when you go. But again, it's our legislators being very honest about education. Here's one of her slides that came from that, though. The red is the number of excellent school districts over time in Ohio. The blue is what we've been spending on gifted services. So one of the things, if you watch the debates, the presidential debates, my Tea Party, I'm the chairman of the Warren County Tea Party. We have 1,210 members this week. We grew by 10 members. So it's a large Tea Party. We stuffed 10,000 voter bags. We're Romney supporters. And we gave them out to 10,000 houses. 70% of my county voted for Romney. So I think we got the message out. I think we did our job. But he really disappointed me at one of the debates when he said that, well, we have to hire people from other countries because we don't have those kinds of expertise here. That is so disappointing. I would have rather he said that we've not been putting resources towards the students that could be those kinds of scientists, because that's the truth. Our allotments, our money has been funneled in a different direction, not towards the actual student needs. because these students at the upper end of the learning continuum deserve resources, and we're not giving them to them. We don't help them with education. We expect their parents to pay for it, right? If you're a demographically disadvantaged or if you're a minority, you get help with college. But the other students who are doing academically okay do not get help with college. And so a lot of us, I have 3 in college right now, are really struggling to get these bills to get them to college. I mean, we're flat broke. I have 3 in college, 1 at Middle Tennessee State, 1 at OU, and 1 at ONU. I'm a bilingual nurse, and I have a pre-med major, and I have a pharmacy major. They'll be in for 6 to 8 years. Thinking, guys, I don't know, you're going to have to start working the ice cream stand because I can't do any more than I'm doing. But that's unfortunate that we're not putting resources towards the kids who are really capable of taking those jobs. Okay, this is Ohio. This is a map of where we are, and it shows Ohio as a gray state. A gray state, look over here, just means that we're average in academics. I think we know that, but here's some more. Dayton Daily is a tabloid. I do not call them a newspaper, but they're a tabloid that writes stuff out in our area. And we're not friends. You can see that from almost every article, that they find the worst picture they can find of me, and they put it on their paper. I send them a glamour shot, and they won't put it in there. They refuse to make me look good, that's for sure. And they endorsed the other 3 candidates. That set them off right away. But anyway, Dayton Daily has articles every so often. But they said in one of them that Ohio schools boost ranking in 2 U.S. studies. States showed improvement in national quality count scores. The rest of the story, though, if you read on, according to this quality count scores, Ohio teachers earned a C+ for 2011 biennial report, but the state had received a D+ 2 years before that, making us the most improved state. I'm not sure if that's something we can brag about, though, going from a D+ to a C+. Quality Counts Index, as previously reported by the Dayton Daily tabloid, put Ohio at 10th in the nation with an overall average grade of a C. I think we just saw that. The nation as a whole received a C from this organization. The second performance study was conducted by the American Legislative Exchange Council. It was released last year by the Ohio, and has Ohio coming in 21st for its K-12 performance, progress, and reform. Ohio's education really number 5? When you look at these metrics, and it was another article, I think it says from the World Press, when you look at the metrics a little closer, you see that, 8th graders taking algebra is where you want almost all 8th graders to get to algebra by the time they're there. But if you look at 8th graders taking algebra as the norm, Ohio was only ranked number 28. And when you look at Ohio's ranking on the number of students with a high AP score, you know what AP is? Advanced Placement class that they take in high school. And if they do well on the end of semester or the end of year exam, they can actually test out of a college course. So you want them to get, and the scale is only from a 1 to 5. You want the students to get a 3, 4, 5. And that way the institution they're going to may say, oh, you know what, you took a hard course in high school, we're going to let that count as one of your courses here at college. And they can test out of maybe a semester's worth of classes. But my kids took all that they could, and they tested out of all of them, but their institutions didn't accept them. Like pharmacy. The pharmacy program at ONU didn't take most of what they tested out of. They had to have a 5 in all of them, a perfect score in order to test out. But OU accepted 3s and 4s. So it totally depends on the institution, by the way. That's just a little tidbit. We ranked number 27, where our students got high AP scores. Percent of students achieving at the advanced level on the 8th grade national exam, math exam, our students ranked 33. Ohio's education is geared towards proficiency, and I'm going to describe that in a minute because that's where we're going wrong. We're geared towards proficiency until I'm having trouble tonight. Until we go beyond the mindset that mediocres equals excellence, we will never be an international leader or a national leader in this state. We need to move on beyond that. Okay, this is from a presentation that Tom Gunlock gave to Springboro Schools. We invited him, and he is the vice president of the Ohio School Board. Very articulate, very intelligent guy. We talk often because he's great. He's a great conservative. He presented to us this new A through F grading system. And A through F grading system was instituted. Now we will use it, I think it's in this next year, but he was telling us what it's all about. Because so many school districts in the state of Ohio are rated excellent and excellent with distinction, that's not very descriptive of any deficiencies, is it? So we know globally we've got some deficiencies. Let's look at our school districts. But he said, we're going to institute this A through F. So from now on, rather than be excellent, excellent with distinction, continuous improvement, academic watch, we're going to grade you A through F. But he said in this presentation that Springboro, you're doing a great job. And I'm sure he would say that in Logan Hawking, that you have lots of good things that you're doing a great job, but that the successes that he was just mentioning to us were based on minimums. And he said that, what do I mean by minimums? He said these successes are based on a system that was designed in the 1980s to measure whether a student had an 8th, 9th, or 10th grade level of subject matter to graduate. That these are not the skill sets that prepare students to be accepted into college. They're not the skill sets for the without remedial coursework, but they're not the skill sets that prepare a student to get a good paying job once they get out of school. I'm not sure if there we go. I don't know why that's there. Okay, let me tell you what proficient means. He was saying that, this A through F system is going to measure this differently. So let me point to this. Proficiency. Have you ever seen the printouts that students come home with? Anybody seen their grandchildren or children's printouts? When they take a standardized test, they come home with a beautiful couple pages of charts. And it tells you where your student falls. Proficient, advanced, or accelerated, and then advanced. And then there's basic down below that. So you look at that chart and you think proficient. What does it mean to you when I say the word proficient? If your student is proficient, does that mean that they're okay? They've done okay? Acceptable? Let me tell you what it means. Or average. Yeah, I think proficient means that. That's what I would, if I looked it up. Proficient means that on a standardized test in 3rd grade, let's say 3rd grade reading, that a student only needs to answer correctly 57% of the questions to get proficient. Let's look at 4th grade reading. A student only needs to answer correctly 47% of the questions. Let's keep going. Let's 7th grade reading. A student only has to answer 45% of the questions correctly to be called proficient. Go over here to 7th grade math. A student only needs to answer 32% of the questions correctly to be called proficient. Let's go down here to OGTs, which is 10th grade. I had a student, my daughter just finished hers. And here's the score to get advanced, here's accelerated, here's proficient. A student only needs to answer 43% of those questions correctly to be called proficient. And your school district only needs 75% of your students to be proficient or above to count as one of the education indicators. There are 26 education indicators, and your school district only needs 75% of your students in that class to get that score or above, and you get that count. So we're talking about, and Tom presented this to us. Again, these aren't Kelly Cole's words. This is Tom's presentation. And at that time, I didn't know better. And that's why I tell you that as a parent, I thought I wasn't doing my job. I should have known this. Because if my students came home with a report and it said that they were proficient, I needed to ask some more questions. Like, I need to get them a tutor. We need to go to Sylvan. I need to sit down and do homework with them. As a parent, we have to take on more of these responsibilities. But as a district and as a state, we have to be more honest about our scores. Proficient's not the right word for a failing grade. If your student came home or your child came home with a 43% pass or correct, I'm going to say you're grounded. Give me your iPad, your phone, the Xbox, they're all gone. I would find their currency. And I would say, okay, you're going to improve these scores, or we're going to improve these scores together. But when they call it proficient, we all kind of say, okay, we're average, we're good. I don't have to address that. We need to call it what it is, failing. And stop using terminology that confuses people, including the district, and stop accepting 75% of them that can get a failing grade, and you're all good. We're called excellent, okay? Oh, by the way, anybody that wants a copy of these slides can have them, because I sent them to Beth, just write to me, I sent them to the pastor here, or he's got them downloaded so you can have them. And I hope you spread the word. I hope you share them with people. But here's the number of school districts, just looking over time. In Ohio, here's the number of school districts that got excellent or excellent with distinction in 2002 and 3. Here's the number of school districts that got it just last year, 352. Now, do you think we're doing a better job at educating our students? I asked Tom that. His answer was no. We've lowered the cut score so that more of you meet that. Because everybody wants to feel good about what you're doing, and we don't really want to tell people that you're not doing better. So we keep lowering that score that it takes to get proficient so that you all feel better about yourselves. Okay? So to me, Colleen Grady, this is her slide. Again, I told you I take other people's work. She calls it a cruel hoax. Again, I'm saying that I'm thankful for the state for finally telling us the truth. I was thankful that Tom came to our district and told us this stuff. I'm thankful that Colleen Grady published this report and is letting me use the slides. Because without it, we wouldn't know. We'd keep going the way we are, and we'd keep sitting here wondering, why are all these foreign people taking all of our kids' jobs? Why are we importing these expertise? We're not doing our job here. Okay, this is again Tom Gunlock's presentation, and he said, look, we all think we're advanced. We keep saying we're advanced at everything. But here's the truth. Here's what Ohio believes themselves. Fourth grade reading, we believe that 42.8% of our students are advanced. But if we put that on the national scale, the national standardized test, we put those same kind of scores there, we'd only have 9% of our students advanced. Over here, fourth grade math, we believe that 44.6% of our students are advanced in fourth grade math. But if we compared ourselves nationally, only 8% of our students would be advanced. So do you see now that Ohio has an inflated ego of how well we're doing versus the truth nationally? We've kind of inflated our scores, and we all feel good about ourselves when that's not the case nationally, and we know it's not the case globally. Okay, this came from a presentation on ODE. You can find a slide presentation called When Students Matter Most. I love it. He said that, the presenter said that NAEP, which is our National Standardized Tests, the scores have been flat for a long time. He says that our ACT scores, that's at college entrance exam scores, flat for a long time. He said that the college remediation is up. Can you guess how many of the students in the state of Ohio graduate from high school and have to take a remedial course or a catch-up course in math and English to enter college? Can you guess? That's high. 41% of our students that graduate from high school have to take some kind of course to get into college because they don't meet the minimum competencies to get into college. So where we're graduating them at high school and what it takes to get into college are pretty far apart. That they have to take some kind of, almost half, have to take some kind of course to get in. So again, we're not bringing them to the minimum level to get into college. We've got a problem there too, disconnect. And again, I'm thankful that the state is telling us there's a problem, because for all this time, under Strickland's administration, we didn't know this. It was kept very quiet. And before that, kept very quiet. Voinovich was, I don't know who was back there. Voinovich was the bad guy when I was teaching at the college. We all didn't like him, so now it's Casey people don't like. But anyway, I think he's fine. The state assessment of our performance, meaning our idea of what we're doing, the excellent with distinction, that number's gone up. There's a mismatch. We're not performing, but we think we're doing better. So, do we feel better now that we know? I hope we don't. I hope we start trying to address it. Here's the A through F grading system. So this is Tom's slide. 352 school districts right now have excellent with distinction. If they applied the new standard of an A, only 22 districts would be excellent, or would have an A. Let me tell you, this is frustrating for me, and I've had this conversation with Tom Gunlock. The only difference is that now, instead of 75% of your students having to be proficient, 80% will have to be proficient. And it changed that dramatically. So you see how it was easy. It's pretty easy to get excellent with distinction. With a 5% change, we knocked it down to 22 rather than 352. Does that make sense? I've never tried to approach that subject, but we have 352, and we change 5% of the acceptance there, it knocks 320 some school districts out of the excellent and excellent with distinction. Okay. Okay, here at Logan Hawking, I told you I was going to bring it down to the school district here. Okay, college and career ready. Remedial rates for the state for in-state students. These are just college students or students that graduate from Logan Hawking and want to stay in-state to school. We know some go out of the state, but these are just the ones that stay in-state. The Ohio Board of Regents is the one that publishes this, and anytime you guys want that link, I'll give it to you, because you can look at Logan Hawking over time. You can look back at 2008. I think I found results to 2008 pretty easily at the Ohio Board of Regents, OBR. And then you can look at 9, 10, 11. So you can look at it over time. In my district, when I got on the school board, and remember, I was so lonely. I have 4 other board members who didn't care for any words I uttered. But I asked questions, and that, of course, ticks people off. I asked, why are our remedial rates in Springboro at 23%? The curriculum director had just stood at the podium and told us that 40% of our population is gifted. But if we have 40% gifted student population, why are 23% of them not getting into college without taking a catch-up course? Again, there's a disconnect. And I said, that's 1 in 4 of our students that graduates from here that has to take a remedial course. Anybody else alarmed with that number? And what I got was one guy came up afterwards, a teacher, nice guy, I like him a lot. But he came up and he said, well, Dr. Coles, you understand that the state average is 41%. So we're really doing better than that. And I said, I'm not going to say his name, but I said, really? I don't take comfort in knowing other schools do worse. And he said, but some of these kids probably shouldn't go to college. I said, again, if one of our students graduates and can't pass the minimum competencies to get into college, we have a problem. Every student should meet the minimum competency. We should bring them all to that level. We can't ignore that there's 1 or 2 that shouldn't go to college. They should all go to college if they want to. And if they don't want to, that's fine too. But they should at least be brought to a certain competency level, I think. And that would be defined by college entrance. And maybe that's what we're not doing, is paying attention to some of those things. So Logan Hawking's at 43%. It's above the state average. So again, I think it's an appropriate question to walk in there and say, okay, what are we doing? I understand the numbers, not pretty. What are we doing to address it? What help do you need, school district? Because I'm willing to come in and help you. What do we need to do? Can we offer a summer program? Can we, do something to get these kids off the remedial charts here? Because you can do it. And guess what ours are now, guys? In just 1 year. When I raised the question, I got a lot of grief. Don't mess with us. We're doing fine. We're excellent with distinction, always have been. We've got great students, great everybody. Everybody's great. I just asked the question. But this year, we are at 14%. We were able to change it almost 10% by just paying attention to it and saying, how are you addressing it? What are you doing? Let's work on this one. So everything you can find out about your district, and I can help you navigate ODE anytime you want. I have my phone number plastered on this literature. Say, Kelly, guide me through this. Or what I did was I called ODE. They have the phone numbers on the front page. And I said, here's what I'm trying to find out. And they talked me through. Just right there on the phone. They sat there and just talked me through to find that data. So guys, look for it. Get in their business. Because sometimes they won't pay attention unless you ask them to. Okay, why? There's little evidence that class size and teacher-student ratios have a consistent impact on student achievement. Why? We have the resources, we have the money, we have the educated professionals. Where are we going wrong? I want you to keep that question in mind. Let me look at money management. Maybe that's part of this. But Logan Hawking spends $9,737 per pupil per year. Academic, I don't know why I left that there. Sorry, I was comparing to somebody else. Let's see, you have 26 out of 26 indicators met, and performance index is at 99.4 out of a possible 110. And I'm certainly not telling you guys how to interpret this stuff, but I'm just saying these are the numbers. These are all numbers you can find, and you can compare yourself to other schools on this ODE website. You can say, well, why is ours here and this neighboring school district is here? District, can you explain that to me? And they're usually pretty good. They can describe to you why yours might be lower, or yay if you're higher. Okay? Logan Hawking has 54% of your students who are proficient or below. And again, as a person that I am, I like to look at where are we going wrong and how can we improve. So I like to look at where you're proficient, which is a score of a D usually, and below, how many of our students are not scoring well on these standardized tests. And I'd say this is 54%, almost half, a little more than half, I'm sorry, a little more than half are not scoring well on these standardized tests. So again, good questions are what grades? Where are we going wrong? You know, somebody somewhere is pulling us down. Let's figure it out. Logan Hawking increased per pupil expenditures 08 through 12 by 17%. Again, I don't think we can compare ourselves to each other. Springboro has failed 5 levies, and we've put back all the things that we took from the children during the levy campaigns. We were projecting a $30 million deficit during those levy campaigns. We now have a $7 million surplus, and we put, without new money, and we put all the things back that we took from the kids. We took high school busing's back. We put pay to play at $475 back then. It's now at $250. We've cut it in half. We've cut student fees down from where they were. We've put things back in there. We increased special ed. We increased gifted services. We put back field trips. We put back all those things that they were taking to almost tighten the noose around our necks, because they knew parents would really start working for this levy if they made it really uncomfortable for us. And as a parent, that's where I got frustrated. I found out that class size increased artificially. I found out that some of our class sizes were getting up to 32. And teachers would say to me, I can't teach 32 students. And come in and watch me. And they would get mad at me because I was a no voter, I guess. And they wanted this thing to pass. So I said, okay. Well, I came in and I watched the class. I thought she managed it really well. I really respected her ability to manage 32 students. But I know that's more than we want to have in a classroom. But I found out a year later that it was done on purpose to make a point. The business manager said it out loud, and I figured it out. And the only reason he said that was because I had asked the superintendent to please give me everybody's schedule, every teacher's schedule, and we have 330 teachers. I want everybody's schedule, and it took me 4 months to get it. Very frustrating that it took that long for a board member to get a public document. Trust me, we had words. But I got it. I got everybody's schedule, and I noticed that all the 6th grade teachers got not just a planning period, but they got a duty also. A duty is where you have another hour off to do something else, and that's where the class sizes were at 32. And I said, now, I brought it into the board meeting. I said, board members, were you aware that this is happening in 6th grade? And we said, okay, board members said, okay, explain that. Explain what this is all about. And they explained something kind of hooey. That's my word for smelly. They explained something, and the board members, honestly, they all looked at them and said, okay, stop it. And the business manager said, okay, well, it was done to make a point. It was done to make a point that we had so much need for money. We needed more teachers, that we were ratcheting up class sizes on purpose. And you know what? It sounds selfish maybe, but my son was in that class. I said, really? You did that? You did that just to make a point that we need the money. So I got the idea then that a lot of it is manipulation, voter manipulation, that the money wasn't being put where it should go, that the money was being held on to. And now you understand that we've had a $42 million swing in our budget because we have an all-conservative school board. Because once I got elected, and I was definitely in the minority, I got a ULP my first 3 months there. Union said, we're charging you with an unfair labor practice. That was front page of Dayton Daily Tabloid. And then, from then on it just spiraled. I said no to an $830,000 increase in health care costs. I said that's not paired with what the community is seeing. I started just getting nonstop harassment, but that's okay. Because every time I voted no, I explained why I voted no, that wasn't fair to community members who weren't seeing those kinds of benefit increases and weren't seeing those kinds of raises. And the community started to agree with that philosophy, and they hired 2 more of me. And so I took board majority, and I've been president for a year and a half. That's what comes of that. But we started making, I think, sense and started saying, how does that decision help children learn? And how are we addressing our deficiencies? Please explain that to me. And just asking the questions makes people be a bit more honest about what's going on. So let's keep going. If you want to compare your district to another district, there are reports on ODE. So you go to the Ohio Department of Ed, and there's a search bar. You can put this in, CUP, C-U-P-P report. What that does is it compares a lot of financials for your district, Logan Hocking. I've got a preprint in my folder. And then it compares you, the next whole column of all these financials compares you to 19 other similar districts. So the Ohio Department of Education has compared Logan Hocking to other districts that are demographically similar. And it looks at the amount of money people are making, how many students per teacher, students per administrator, things like that. And then the third column is the state. So you can kind of compare how you're doing with the 20 similar or 19 similar districts that are demographically similar and to state averages. So CUP report, similar districts is another report. You just put that up in the search bar. And what that tells you is, for example, the poverty level, the minority level, a lot of really good information. I use that too. Caution, though. I caution everybody. Let's stop comparing ourselves to other failing systems. I think we should stop the model altogether. There's another model I have in mind. I'm going to tell you in a minute. Logan Hocking, 54%, I think I said that, we're proficient or below. Enrollment in Logan Hocking from 08 to 12, so the last 4 years, has been flat. There's been no increases, no real changes, couple students here and there, that's about it, per year. The revenue has gone up 1.2% per year, which is great. I had mentioned there that your expenditures per pupil went up 17%, and I stopped there. But for example, Springborough's, and that's what got me off on that tangent, sorry, but Springborough's has gone down 1%. So definitely the expenditures per pupil in Logan Hocking have been really high and escalating quickly compared to other districts, compared to Springboro. Expenditures went up 4.25% per pupil, okay? You're still deficit spending by about $430,000 per year. I don't know why that says, oh, I'm sorry, $436 per pupil per year. There we go. So your your expenses per pupil are exceeding your income. What does that set you up to do? Need more money. Yeah, if you deficit spend, you're going to need more money. It's a vicious cycle. Overspend, need more money. Overspend, need more money. In Springboro, for example, I don't know if this works for Logan Hocking, I'm just giving you some ideas, but we've instituted kind of an unwritten policy that we will no longer deficit spend. We will only spend what we have coming in. And we've been able to manage just fine. In fact, we have found $42 million. Trust me, the forecast is horribly manipulated. So unfortunately, we cannot trust it to be accurate. So when they say we need more money, it's for the kids, you got to ask a lot more questions, guys. And I'll help you. Please call me. I'll help you ask the questions. But you're projecting deficit spending by $830,000 per year, even with slightly increasing revenues projected, which that's hard to find. I hardly ever find a district that's projecting increase in revenues. Almost every district projects decrease in revenues, so that's interesting. I mean, fortunate for you that might be happening. $350,000 more per year in retirement and insurance. Again, I think that's a good question for you to ask. Why would we put that in there? What's the healthcare cost split, and why are we assuming that the taxpayer is going to pick up health insurance cost increases? Because that's usually a typical assumption is you're going to cover them. But I don't know. Is that appropriate? I think you need to ask. Is that okay? Here's looking at, and I messed up the top two lines, but here's looking at Logan Hocking household income versus school employee salaries, and this is just over time. I like to look at the last 4 or 5 years. So from 2008 to 2012, the top line is the teacher salaries, the middle is the average staff salary. Staff salary is from custodian all the way up to superintendent. Okay, everybody averaged together. And then the bottom line is the household median income. Remember, households will usually have one to 2 workers, and they do work all year. It's usually not a 185-day contract or a 9-month contract. Here's more interesting, I think, is that because what somebody makes, I don't think that's my job to argue, because I don't really care. But I do think that it's important to kind of measure what's going on in your community, and is there parity within the public sector. So here, I like to look at the first line, the first darker here. I know, I got a pointer. The first one is the household incomes. And you see that in 2008 to 2009, households lost income. This is the change in teacher average salary. So they did make some pretty good raises that year, and this is all staff. The next year, Logan Hawking households got about, $600 more than the year before, their median salaries, and teachers and staff. And then the next year, Logan Hawking households lost money again, and that's what happened to teachers' incomes and staff. Now here, what happens here is that nobody takes a pay cut. So what it typically is that there's a buyout. There's a retirement program where you incentivize people to go ahead and get out of the system. Those are usually the higher paid people, and you replace them with lower paid people, so the whole average ratchets down. But not that anybody's probably having less. And the next year, here's what happened. Logan Hawking households made a few bucks more than they did the year before, but then here's the raises that happened within the district. So I'm looking at that thinking, okay, well, we know where some of that money's going. Average administrator salary went up $4,700 in those 4 years. Superintendent salary went up $24,000 in those 4 years. So you can kind of look at these numbers and see these are the increases in salaries during that 4 years. But if you look at the bottom, the median, I don't know why it says it, Logan Hawking household income went up $500. What we see there is something that, I notice in almost all school districts, is that there's a disparity. The economic realities in the community are not shared with the economic realities inside the district. So while we've been throwing a lot of money at this system, we've not been putting it towards gifted services. We've not really been asking a lot of the hard questions. Why aren't we addressing these deficiencies? Because honestly, guys, and this is harsh, but there's been a money funnel. And it's been funneled towards the adults. Okay, that's why the union doesn't like me. I don't see any other solution here. So what do we do about it? Well, let me keep going. So $500 more in 5 years or 4 years, you guys have made a whole whopping $500 more. Not the experience of personnel within the district. Okay, so the board is at the top of the organizational chart. People should remember that. Board members should remember that. I'm here today to recruit some of you to run for school board. Because my organization, the Ohio School Board Leadership Council, is going to coach you to look into this stuff, to ask your district these questions. And I say, if you don't absolutely love children and love education, don't run for school board. But all you need is those two prerequisites, and you'd be a great school board member. Because that's what we're doing, is we're supposed to be hired by the community to watch out for the kids. And if I'm noticing within a district that my district is spending the money on the adults and not the kids, I think I have a valid concern. I think I have a reason to say, hey, wait a minute, what? And so I think that all school districts should start saying, look, we will follow whatever the economic reality is in our community. So if the community prospers, so do we in the district. It makes everybody want to work to make that community more prosperous, right? It makes everybody involved. Everybody has skin in the game. And so having no raises in the community and less income in the community doesn't mean that we continue business as usual. It means that we have to hold still and make sure that we're attending to the deficits that we have in our education system. 54% are proficient or below, you have some. But instead, we've been given some pretty significant money over here. I think we should be addressing some deficiencies. I think that's a legitimate board member question. I'm just saying. Legal counsel influences board decisions. Here's OSBA. OSBA is my competitor, pretty much. They don't like me either. But Ohio School Board Leadership Council is the alternative to OSBA. OSBA likes the status quo, likes the adults first philosophy, and OSBLC, my org, doesn't. So the flyer you've got there is for my organization. Any of you can be a member. Any citizen could go on to OSBLC, look at what we've got going on. We train board members. In fact, on the 22nd will be our second training. For anybody interested in running for school board, we'll show you how to set up all the social media, your website, your Facebook. We'll show you on that day. It's a full day, $20. That pays for your lunch. And the rest of it's all free. There was one on March 16th where we just said, people, if you're thinking about running for school board, here's what you're going to run into. And here's what you got to think about. Now in August, we'll hold another one. And I will definitely teach people a lot then. We have an event in November, which I'm working hard to get Rand Paul at. I have some people working him over a little bit. We'll see. We'll see. Pray for me, would you? We're in a good place to do that, to get Rand Paul as a speaker, because he's a great advocate for school choice, which is what we're proponents of. I think school choice and competition and more vouchers will cure what ails education. Because the school will have to prove their academic successes, or you won't send your kid there. They'll have to compete for the dollar for that child. Wow. Think of that. A system that fixes itself in one fell swoop. Okay, I already gave you the answer. Okay, so anyway, OSBA, not like-minded with them. You pay membership for your board members to belong to OSBA. Your tax dollars goes about $5,000 a year. You pay for them to belong. And these coaches are not like me. These coaches are telling them, yeah, everything's great. We're going to work the legislator to get more of the same. You know, the OSBA is not happy with our Ohio legislators now because Ohio's doing some stuff that's impressive. And But what they got to do is more vouchers. We got to tell Kasich, hey, we need more vouchers. We need more school choice. Rand Paul's pro-school choice. The Secretary of State, John Huston's pro-school choice. We know that Kasich is school choice. Most of the legislators are school choice. We just got to give them the oomph and say more guys, get it done, because that's the only thing that's going to cure this. I found out our legal counsel, when I first got on the school board, you know, smart person, but her responses were always protecting the employees. She never gave me the answer I wanted to hear. She certainly gave the other four the answers they wanted to hear. For example, do you know what pickup is? You do? One person does. Do you know what pickup is, anybody? Pickup is where the state mandates that you as taxpayers pay 14% of everybody's paycheck into STRS, or their retirement system. The state also mandates that the employees pay 10% of their income into that retirement system. But pickup is where you, the taxpayer, pick that up for them. And in some school districts, you, the taxpayer, pay both portions. You pay the 10% they're supposed to pay and your 14%. Most school districts in the state of Ohio, when I first got on the school board, most of our similar districts were giving their administrators, all their administrators, pickup. Which to us, and I made this case, and the Dayton Daily tabloid actually published it, I made the case that I didn't think that was a very good choice for the children. That we could no longer safely transport our students because we had canceled busing. We could no longer afford to safely transport our students to school, but we continued this bonus package for our administrators. I didn't see how that was a children first decision. And that helped me a lot. It's gone now, but when we asked our legal counsel, can we do away with pickup, her response was no, there's an ORC code that says you can't do that. ORC 3319.02 says you may not reduce an administrative compensation package. I said, now wait a minute. I'm not an expert at this, but surely their contract comes to an end. And when it comes to an end, you offer them one without it, right? They could choose not to non-renew. They could choose, yeah, I'm out of here. Okay. And she goes, oh yeah, you could do that, right? But that wasn't the response we got initially. I had to weasel that out of her. Very frustrating. So when I took board majority, we have new legal counsel. That's what you got to do, because that one kept telling us stuff. We said, can we get rid of somebody that's tenured? Her response was, oh no. Our legal counsel now? Oh yes. So very different advice. Legal counsel makes a big difference here. ODE is a great resource for board members and citizens. The problem is the data on there is always going to be a year or two old. So it won't be current. You may have to go to the treasurer. Did you know that every document in that school is yours if you ask for it? Everything. The only thing that you can't have is somebody's medical record, their criminal background check, and their social security number. Every personnel record, if you ask for it, it's yours, because you're the public, you pay the bills, and they're all public documents by law. So if you want to ask for data, information, you ask the treasurer. They are the public documents official. And whatever you ask them, they have to answer you. And I hope they answer you with completion. The problem has been you have to set the time. Say, I would like the information on this question, and I'd like it by, and then give them a date and a time that's reasonable. Because they have to supply it to you in a reasonable amount of time. They may interpret that. But lawyers will tell you that a month, that's too long. A couple weeks, that makes sense. So our treasurer has to fill quite a few public document requests. So what we did was we put everything on our website. We have what we call now a transparency project. That took me a couple years to get done. but every teacher, staff member, every employee's salary for the last 6 years is published on our website. It's called the Transparency Project, and everything is on there. So we don't get very many public document requests anymore. It's all online. And again, people don't like that, but that's transparency. We're being honest. I want my public, I want the people who voted me in to see what we're spending our money on. And a public worker's salary is not private. It's public. Okay, superintendent treasurer, good source of information and influence, and the union is a pretty big influence in education. I can't talk much, we're in negotiation, so well, I'll have to talk to you more about that later. Because I'm board president, it means that I always speak on behalf of the board, and because I do that, whenever I speak, they're saying, hey, you represent the board, so I can't say anything about any of our negotiations because that's all private information. But we did choose to publish both offers. So on our website, we have the union's offer and we have the district's offer, which is a big no-no. But it's not illegal. Our lawyer now, our new one, he said it is a public document and he can defend that. So even though we've got a ULP, you know Strongsville School District just came out of a strike. They had a 9-week strike, teacher strike. Brecksville before that. But we're going to look at a lot of teacher strikes coming up because we're coming to the end of our financial pool. I think we're all kind of done funneling money into the system. We're saying you need to make ends meet with what you've got. And I don't believe that the unions typically are okay with that. So they're going to coach their membership to go ahead and strike. We're going to see more of them because I don't think the economic reality inside is the same as the economic reality outside, and there's a meeting here. And you know, when you have this disparity in salaries like this, and the disparity in the changes in income, the community gets frustrated. And they have a right to be frustrated. And they have a right to say, wait a minute, you know, I'm done. And that's what creates this community divide. When your school district is asking for things that you don't all see, then the community gets, you know, we don't have to be this way. If we all say that our pay and benefits need to kind of match, then we won't have this divide. It's mostly over economics. The rest of it, I think everybody's certainly willing to help. But you look at, everybody asks me, well, what about pay per hour? Because they work a 185-day, it's not a, 260-day like the rest of us. So let's just do the math. So I thought, okay, I assume in this calculation that your households have 1.5 workers, because typically you have, half your households have 2 workers, and half your households have 1 worker, right? So I'm just assuming 1.5 workers working 249 days, that's 4 weeks off, and then they work 8-hour days, okay? So that's 2,988 hours. A district worker, 187-day contract, minus 15 sick days, 8-hour work day, we've got 1,376 hours. So I took the Logan Hawking household income of $27,700, divided it by the number of hours, I get $9 per hour. Here, I got my pointer here. District, average salary, $40,000. I subtracted this amount, long story short, because this number up here is federally adjusted. That's from their tax return. This number here is from their contract, and it's not federally adjusted. So I took the liberty of federally adjusting it by subtracting 11-12%. Does that make sense? I'm just trying to make apples to apples. I'm trying to be fair to both numbers. So I federally adjusted their income. Then I divide it by the number of hours, and I get $26 per hour. So that's 3 times the hourly rate. Well, then the only difference, because I tried to correct for everything, then the only difference is the degrees. And that's true. Within your district, you have fairly large percent of the population have higher ed degrees. So that means, I guess there's some compensation differences. So here's what I found from your similar, oh darn it, I didn't mean to do that, hold on. Your similar districts, okay, it goes forward. Similar districts report showed me that 18% of Logan Hawking households have higher ed degrees, whereas inside your district, it's more like 60. So I don't know. It's certainly up for you to decide whether that's worth 3 times the hourly rate. But when I'm asked what's the disparity, the state said during SB 5 that it was something like 30% difference between a professional that is in the private sector and a professional that's in the public sector. They were telling us it was about a 30% difference. It totally depends on the community you're in. In our district, I've done the math, and it's a 20% difference per hour, and we have about 60% of our population that has higher ed degrees. So there, I've totally apples to apples everything, and it's still 20% higher. So again, I'm not telling voters how to vote. I certainly didn't turn down 5 levies by myself, but I am trying to interpret what they're saying, and what they're saying is the disparity is a bigger problem here, and the fact that we're not using money. I can get to questions at the end, guys, but the question is, are we using the money to devote to the children's deficiencies and the academic deficiencies we have, or are we putting it somewhere else? Okay, this is the healthcare cost split. Kaiser Family Foundation does a study, and they publish it every year, where they look at public and private sectors combined and what the healthcare cost split is. And within public sector, we know that it's more like a 90-10. It might even be a 80-20 healthcare cost split. And we know that in the public sector, the private sector, did I say that wrong? Public sector is a lot smaller than the private sector. And so combined, they're saying that a family policy combined both sectors nationally is a 30% split. Okay, and then you look at how many people get Medicaid medical coverage in retirement. The private employees or private employers, only about 18% of their employees get health care in retirement, whereas the public employees, about 63% of the retirees get health care covered, and then nonprofit employers and all employers. Summary: we have falsely and significantly inflated our education egos while ignoring the significant deficiencies we have in our education system. The public has largely been kept from the facts through manipulation and misrepresentation of the information released by public education systems. Unfortunately, all the money and information manipulation has resulted in a reduced academic outcome. It appears that For the Kids was a part of that manipulation. For the last 20 years, we have let our students down. We have become an adults' first education system rather than a children's first education system. Influencers to the decision makers in education seem to have convinced board members that their job is to protect employees first and then try to educate. Become an informed consumer, guys, and know what's going on and start asking the questions. I mean, don't use my interpretation of the numbers for Logan Hawking. Do your own homework. And I think that you'll find either you agree or disagree, but it at least gives you somewhere to start with the questions. Okay? But why then, do you understand why we might be then victimized or open to Common Core? Because Beth asked that I talk to you about Common Core. So the presentation was mostly on education, why it's failing our students. I think we need school choice. I hope I've made that clear. The competition will fix a lot of what ails education. But the state said years ago, back in 2010 when Strickland was still governor, he put Common Core, the acceptance of Common Core, in his budget bill, which was House Bill 1. A month later, Common Core standards actually came out. So he obligated us to accept Common Core national standards. Don't let them tell you they're state standards, they're national standards. He obligated that to us to that before they were actually published. So it makes you kind of leery already that we obligated us to us, then we see what the final product is. It makes you a little leery anyway. But years ago, they started this whole national standards phenomena, and they started it in history and found out that it was too controversial, so they stopped it. But they also found during that time that the marketing company said, you cannot call this federal or national standards because they'll reject it. Call it state standards. So they've called it now state standards, but it's a national program. Do we want that? I don't know. But I'm telling you, our state was victim to it because they understood how poorly we were doing globally and how poorly Ohio was doing nationally, and they said we have to do something. And so they started with, let's change the standards. Do you know what the standards are? The standards are a bunch of narrative that describe what the students should learn. Our standards for the state of Ohio were written in 2001 by a lot of teachers and a lot of administrators across the state. I think our standards written in 2001 are good. If we have to change them, that's fine, we can beef them up. But they were written by Ohioans, and I tend to trust that. They were written by education experts. I tend to trust that. Unfortunately, these Common Core standards are not. They were not written by Ohioans, nor teachers. And teachers are frustrated by this because they were not involved. That's a problem. That should be a flag. They were written by National Governors Association and school administrators, which nobody knows who they are. They're at the federal level, though. Okay, so whose agenda is this, and what's the end product? I just kind of glommed onto a couple slides. I have an overall whole presentation on Common Core, but I glommed onto this one. What is dispositions? Have you ever heard of such a thing? Because this is presented by Ohio Department of Ed. And they're saying that these are the skills that children need to know. They need to have knowledge of their content, absolutely. They need to have the skills, absolutely. And then they have to have these dispositions. Socio and emotional skills and behaviors that associate. I'm thinking, what is that? I mean, I'm an educator, but I don't know what that is. Why do we have to tie emotions to education? Isn't it a fact? Isn't math math? Isn't science science? Why are we now tying in this emotional drama? That's what I see it. But if you look at the things down below, you can't disagree with all that. We want the kids to be self-efficient, have initiative, resilience, adaptability, leadership, ethical behavior. Sure, that all makes sense, but I don't think that's what they mean. What the experts say. James Milgram, the only mathematician on the Common Core Validation Committee, refused to sign off, stating that the standards were heavily influenced by special interests and would significantly reduce the expectations of our students, putting them 2 years behind other states and other countries. Sandra Stotsky,